Hey guys, it's Planet Discus Fish Tank. Welcome back to part 2 of our Dutch style aquascape project. In the last video I went over an introduction of the Dutch style, which essentially is characterized by a densely planted aquarium with minimal hardscape. The plants have contrast in color, texture, and leaf sizes, and it's usually high-tech with pressurized CO2, highlighting, and dosing of liquid fertilizers. So also from part 1, I went ahead and put the dragon driftwood in the tank. I tied it down with rocks. I then proceeded with the substrate, which is organic potting mix mixed with osmocote fertilizer. I then put a layer of gravel. This is cheap gravel from Home Depot, and this was to weigh the potting mix down so that it doesn't float up to the surface. And finally, I capped it with about an inch of sand. So today I get to finish planting and stocking the Dutch style aquascape. And we're going to start with buying plants from my local fish store. This is the House of Tropicals in Glen Burnie, Maryland. It's a pretty large fish store with a large selection of freshwater and saltwater fish. They have a few display tanks. Here is a nice Planet Discus fish tank. They have a large amount of substrates, decorations, driftwood, rocks, and other equipment. Here we have cultured plants in a little cup. These are typically foreground plants, carpet plants. Over here is another display tank. It's a paludarium. You got some live bearers and some immersed plants. And another display tank, we got some rainbow fish, we got some immersed plants as well. I believe these are scarlet temples. Nice looking tank. Now I head straight to the plant section where I'm going to buy plants to fill the Dutch style aquascape. So as I'm looking at the plants, I'm thinking about the Dutch style characteristics. I wanted a mix of red plants, green plants. I wanted some short foreground plants, some tall background plants, and I wanted to see different leaf shapes. But it's very hard when you look at all these plants and you're tempted to just buy all of them. So I decided to go slowly. I wanted to buy maybe a few plants to start with, and then maybe come back the following week to add more. So back to our tank. I've bought a few species of plants, and here we're going to start with the Cuban Ludwigia. This is a very tall plant with I guess, two forms. What you see here is a bit of its immersed form where it has broader leaves and they're kind of spread out. But the submersed form, under high light, it grows very thin, narrow leaves, and it gets a hint of pink and maybe a little bit of red. Here I'm planting the golden Lloydiilla. It's a nice stem plant with round leaves, and it's got a light green to a yellowish color. Here we have the foreground plants. These are tissue cultured plants. We have Monte Carlo and Althernatera Reinickii mini. So these will make up most of my foreground. So this is the tank about 1 week later. I have CO2 in there. I've been dosing some fertilizers. Those, by the way, will be part 3 and part 4 of this series. But obviously there's still some missing plants that I wanted to fill. So here I add more plants. This first one is called Limnophila Hippuroides. It's a stem plant with narrow green leaves with a little bit of violet or purple. Up next is Rotala Macandra, another stem plant with light green and orange hued leaves. Here another week has gone by. The plants are looking good. I've stocked it with some fish, and the plants are looking healthy and lush. But on the right hand side, you notice that the jungle val has melted. I mean, there's some left over at the bottom there. Hopefully they grow back, but I would like to cover up that overflow with some jungle vals. This is part of my cleanup crew. This is an albino bristlenose pleco. These guys are great in sucking up some algae, and I have about 4 of those in there. These are green cories, another member of the cleanup crew. They're bottom feeders, and they essentially turn all the waste into little dust particles. Nice and active little guys there. And I have about 6 of them in there. These are green neons, my schooling fish. There's about a dozen of them in there. And they also serve as the dither fish for the discus that'll eventually be stocked in here. And finally we have a blue crayfish. There's actually two in there. This one's the bigger one. And he's looking good. He comes out to look for food. And so far he hasn't bothered any of the other inhabitants. And that's it for episode 2 of the Dutch Aquascape. Join me next time for part 3 of the series where I talk about the CO2 system that I bought online. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you later.